Hi everyone, Victor here again, and in today's lesson, we're going to be looking at the topic network configuration and management in Linux. Without proper configuration of network, you're going to get stuck. I'll tell you some of my stories on the field at the end of this course. I'll probably have a story time section. And again, if you're going to be writing the exam, you can check the description box below for the exam practice questions or preparation question. And you can also contact us at info@technique.com. Moving forward, there are quite numbers of services and tools that are used to manage network in Linux, and they are the Network D, which is also known as the network service. We have the network manager service, and we also have the network plan utility. In the earlier versions of Linux systems, the likes of Red Hat 5, Red Hat 6, Ubuntu 16, and other earlier Linux distributions, the network, also known as the network disk service, was responsible for managing network, and various Linux distributions have spread the network service configuration files over many locations on the system. For example, the network configuration file for network D in the earlier versions of Red Hat is in /etc sysconfig network script file, while that for the earlier version of Ubuntu for the network disk service is in /etc network interfaces. As higher Linux distribution came by, the likes of the RHEL 7, Ubuntu 18, and others, the network disk service was deprecated and the network manager service was adopted. Red Hat still maintained the network configuration file for the network manager service in the etc/sysconfig network script file. As a matter of fact, for RHEL 7, you could use both the network D service and the network manager service concurrently to manage your network. And on the other hand, Ubuntu adopted another location for managing network with the network manager service, which is in /etc network manager system connections. And as higher Linux distributions came by again, Red Hat and Ubuntu deprecated the use of network disk service totally for managing network. Red Hat 8 fully switched into using the network manager service, and the network configuration file for this service still remained in the same location, which is etc/sysconfig network script, whilst Ubuntu also still maintained the network manager service configuration file in the location etc network manager system connections. And another utility was also introduced to manage the network for Ubuntu, which is called the netplan utility. Again, as a higher Red Hat distribution came by, Red Hat 9 and above, Red Hat decided to move the network manager service network configuration file to that of Ubuntu, which is in the location etc network manager system connections. And the idea is that more distros are adopting the network manager config file in that location, and it has become the commonly accepted location for network connections in Linux. Hence, Red Hat joined the train. And for Red Hat 9, you can still use the former location, which is the sysconfig network script ifcfg location. However, it is not recommended because by default, the system will check the etc network manager system connections file first for network connections before checking the etc sysconfig network script file. So in summary, for Red Hat distribution and its derivatives, the services responsible for network configuration and management are the Network D service, which is the older version, and the Network Manager service, which is the newer version. And for that of Ubuntu and its derivatives, that's for Debian and its derivatives like Ubuntu, the services and utility responsible for network configuration and management are the Network D service, which is the older version. Then we have the Network Manager service, which is the newer version. And we also have the Net Plan utility, which is the newer version. So having understood this, we would understand all these things I've said better in the action time section by the time we begin to look at the step-by-step guide of how to configure networking in Red Hat and in that of the Ubuntu systems. So let's get started with the action time section. So currently I am on a Red Hat system, and like I've mentioned that the service that is responsible for network configuration and management used to be the network service, and that's why if I do system CTL status network service, you can see that we cannot find that network service anymore because it's been deprecated. So the new service that is responsible for managing and configuring network on radar systems is the network manager service. And that's why if I do status on network manager, you can see that this service is up and running. And also let's confirm, if I go to the sysconfig file, network script, and if I do ls, you can see that I cannot find the network configuration profile in this location anymore. And like I said, that it's been moved to etc network manager systems connections. And if I do ls, you can see that I can now see the network profile for this NIC. And if I cut this particular profile, you can see the configuration file here. And this reminds me of Ansible because this configuration file is in the INI data structure. And currently you can see that on my system, I am using and the auto method, which is DHCP, and you can see my connection here. I have the ID, which is the NIC. The NIC is ENS160, and this is the UUID for the NIC. That's for my connection, and this is the type of connection, which is Ethernet. And you can see that for the method, it is auto, meaning that this is DHCP. So what we're going to do now is to set a static IP address, and then let's verify all of those things. And also again, if I do IP space dash A, you can see that I have just one NIC on the system, and the NIC is ENS160. This is for the loop back. I'll be dropping the link to the documentation in the description box below, so you can check through and understand how NICs are being assigned on a Linux system. That's if you're interested in doing that. So I'll drop that link so that you can check and you'll be able to understand all of these things. Even in the documentation too, if you're interested in the whole IFCFG file, what all of those things means, you can check that in the documentation too. And also even the new system connections file, you can also check what all of those parameters means in the documentation. I'll try as much as possible to also explain them here too as well. And like I said, you can see that the network card they were working on is the ENS160. Yeah, it's fine. I know I have this IP address on the system, and like we saw that it's a DHCP IP address. So I don't want to lose this IP. I still want to retain this IP, and that's why I'm going to still give the system this IP, but this time around, we're going to make it static. And for us to do that, we need to use some tools. So there are some tools that you can use with the network manager service, and one of the tool is the NMCLI tool, meaning network manager CLI. So this is the tool that you can use to set your network by using the command line interface. Another network manager tool you can use is the NMTUI2, meaning Network Manager Text Utility Interface. So these two will make good. You'll be able to set your network or configure your network by using the text utility. But let's see the one for the NMCLI first. And for me to set my IP with the NMCLI tool, I can just say NMCLI connection modification on which particular NIC, which is ENS160, and I want the IPv4 address, IPv4 dot address. So it's going to be addresses, and the address is 192.168. I don't know why my tab key is not working here. So 192.168.146, and then this is going to be /24, which is the subnet mask, and I can say enter. And for me to set my gateway to, I'm going to use the same command, which is the NMCLI connection mode followed by the NIC, and this is going to be IPv4 dot gateway. And for the gateway, my gateway on the system to is 192.168.72.2. So this is my gateway, and then I'm also going to set the DNS, and for the DNS is going to be IPv4 dot DNS, and the same IP that I have for my gateway is also the same thing as DNS. So I can say enter, and then I need to set the boot protocol. That is, I need to change it from the DHCP to static mode. So I can just say NMCLI connection mode followed by the NIC, and then this is going to be IPv4 dot method, which is going to be manual. So the method is going to be manual. And now the next thing I'm going to do is to restart the network manager service. So I can say system TTL restart network manager. Now that this has been restarted, sometimes, right, when you restart network manager, you might not see the effect of this. You might not see the effect. This IP might not show. And what you're going to do in that sense is to use the NMCLI method and say, so you can just say NMCLI connection show, so you can see the connection profile. Then from there, you can now see NMCLI connection down ENS 160, and I can just use this command and say NMCLI connection up ENS 160. You can also use the ampersand um, tag too. So you can now see that the connection is deactivated and the connection is also activated. If you don't want to do it this way, you can do it one by one. That's connection down, enter. It's going to sorry, I forgot that I logged in via SSH, so this has been disconnected. I have to pause the video and go back to my console and bring it up from my console. I'm using mobile XTEM here. So it's up now, and that's why it's better when you're in an SSH mode. If you're not on the console, just do it this way, and you're going to be safe. So now, if I do IP space A, yeah, like I said, we still have the same IP because I want to retain that IP. And for me to check my DNS configuration, I can do cat etc resolve.conf. For my gateway, I can do IP route, and this is what I want to show to you. If I do ls and I do cat this file again, you can now see that the configuration file here has changed. You can see that the method now is manual. You can see the IP address, which is now this, and you can see my DNS, which is now this, and you can see my gateway also, which is now this IP address. and you can see that this is now static. So this is what is going to change here. And if you don't want to use the NMCLI command line tool, you can decide to come directly to this file and do these changes just like this directly. And then you can restart the network manager service, or you can then restart the network interface cards. So whichever one you want to do, it's okay. But I like an easy life. I want an easy life. So I'm just going to advise you to use the NMCLI command, and that's going to make your life easy. Set your IP with the NMCLI command, and then you're good to go. So this is one of the ways to set a static IP on the system, like I said, by using the NMCLI command. And if you decide to go to etc sysconfig file again, you would not see anything here. You will not see anything here. Like I told you that it's been moved. So another method you can use is the NMTUI method, which is the text utility interface. From here, you can then do edit a connection. You can choose the network interface card and either hard edit or delete a connection. So I'm going to go back from here because I'm not going to do this here. I've done this in the documentation. So if you want to know how to use the NMTI method, please check the documentation in the description box below. And another method is the GUI method. This system, I don't have a GUI here. But then if you're running on a Red Hat system that has a GUI, by the top right, you can edit your network settings there. And also in the description box below, there's the documentation link. I've also done this in the documentation. So for those that are interested only on Red Hat, this is where this lesson ends. In the next lesson, we're going to look at some other network tools like the DNS and etc host file. So for those who are interested in the Ubuntu, let's check the Ubuntu section and let's see how we can also do this network configuration on the Ubuntu system. So currently I am on an Ubuntu system, and like I said that the network this service has been deprecated. So if I do systemctl status network, and if I do network D, we can see that we cannot find this service. And also for Ubuntu, the netplan configuration utility or configuration file method is the default way to configure all aspects of your network interface. And that is why if you also do systemctl status network manager, you can see that this service cannot be found. So if you want to use the network manager service, you would need to install network manager. And just because the netplan utility is the default way, so we're going to set a static IP by using the netplan utility. And for the netplan utility, if I go to cd etc slash netplan, if I do ls, you can see the configuration file for our network. If I do IP-A, you can see that our NIC is ENS33, and currently we have the IP address of 192.168.72.143. So I'm just going to enter into this file. If I do vi00, so you can see now that our IP is DHCP, and that's why you can see that the DHCP here is true. And we can also see that this netplan configuration file is in YAML format, and that's why at the end of the file you have the extension .yaml, and YAML is indented with white spacings. So indentation rather really matters when it comes to YAML file. If you've gone through the Ansible course, Yeah, of course, you understand what I'm saying because I remember that I extensively thought about YAML in my Ansible course. So you can see how the network file is, and what we want to do now is to set a static IP. And for me to set a static IP, I can start from the network here. The network is Ethernet. The card or the connection profile is ENS33. And for the DHCP4, I'm going to say no. So one thing you can do again is to back up this file before you edit, right? But because I don't wish to back it up, so I'm just going to say no. And then here, I can leave this version 2, and here I can say addresses, right? So under the DHCP4, I can come here and say addresses. So you can see what I'm saying. It is idempotent. So it should be exactly after the nick, which is the parent to DHCP4 and the parameter addresses. So addresses here, I can just come down here and say dash and then put the IP address, or I can just put the IP address straight away. So I can just say I can say 192.168.72. dot. So let's take it back to 143 because I might get disconnected when we do that, and I don't want to get disconnected. Or okay, rather, I will just probably go to the console. Then let's take it back to 143. I don't want to get disconnected. So here I can close this. Okay, bracket here. So this has to be slash 24. Then from addresses here, I can then put in the gateway. So gateway 4 is used to put in the gateway, but I think it is deprecated, but it should still work. Let's see. 192.168.72. My gateway is .2. And then for the name servers, I can just say name servers, that's the DNS. Here, I can then have my addresses. So I can say addresses for name servers. This is going to be 192.168.142.143.2. Sorry, my name server is .2. Then I can also have A.A.A.A.2 as well. So this looks fine. Let's cross check again. Network, Ethernet, right? Then okay. So what I can do is, if I want it to be very neat, I can just take away this version 2, and then I can add it here. After network, I can say version version 2. So I can see my child parent relationship network version 2, then followed by Ethernet, then followed by the NIC or the connection profile, then followed by the DHCP. So we are saying no, and then addresses, that's the IP address. Then we have the gateway 4, we have name servers, and we have addresses. So if I say enter, I can say net plan apply. Okay, we have some warnings. We can see that gateway 4 has been deprecated. Use default route instead. Error in network definition 8.8. Oops. So let's do this again. Okay, so it's also complaining about our DNS. So I'm going to correct this. It has to be 4.8. And then it's saying that gateway 4 has been deprecated. So we're going to change gateway 4 to route instead. So here I'm just going to remove this 72.2. So I'm just going to come here and say remove this gateway 4. Then I can just say route. come here and say dash to default via this. So I can save this file. Let's do net plan apply again. Okay, so everything seems to be fine now. Of course, we still retain our IP. So if I do IPA, you will still see that it's the same IP. And if I do IP route, you will see that we still have our gateway to be this as well. Then for the DNS, if I do cat etc resolve.conf, okay, this is Ubuntu system. So let's use this command resolve CTL status. So I can just say resolve CTL status. So you can see the DNS servers. We have this and we also have this. So this is how you're going to use the NetPlan utility to set a static IP on an Ubuntu system. And like I said that this method is by default. Well, honestly, if I would want to set network on an Ubuntu system, I think I would install the network manager because I'm a Red Hat person, so I am used to network manager, and I don't want to start editing files, and I might even make some mistakes in editing files. So I'll just since Ubuntu 2, you can use the network manager service to manage network. I'm just going to install network manager, and to do that, I can just simply say apt install network manager, network manager, and I can install this package. Okay, it's trying to get it installed. Okay, all right, 89%, 89%, 89%. Okay, I'm just gonna pause this video. Okay, 92. Okay, I think I'm just going to okay. There's no need to pause. Oops. Okay. Okay. Oops. So we're having a lot of services being restarted. All right. Now that we're done with installing, so if I use the nmcli command, it should work now. Nmcli connection show. So I don't have a connection here because I've not, used the network manager to edit the network settings. So from here, of course, the way we did it on the Red Hat system, you can use the nmcli to edit our connection profile. So if I also do systemctl status network manager, you can see that the service is now active and running. So I'll be dropping the link to the description box below, the link to the documentation on how you can use the network manager just the same way we used it on Red Hat system. How you can use the network manager to set your IP addresses, and how you can also use the GUI, and how you can also use the NMTUI method. So for network manager, you can use different tools to set the IP. A tool you can use is network manager, that's NMCLI, network manager command line interface. You can use NMTUI, network manager text utility interface, and then you can also use the GUI method. So that's how network manager works. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll pleading that you should subscribe, like, share, comment. When you do this, you encourage us to do more of those videos. And in the next lesson, we're going to continue with network, of course, network management and configuration. We're going to be looking at the DNS, and we're also going to be looking at the etc and etc host files in Linux. Bye for now.